Hello fellow coders, today we are going to make a video game that will be simple. It will be made in Notepad. It will use HTML, CSS, jQuery, as well as JavaScript. It will be a game where you'll have a character move around on the screen and it will respond to keyboard input. I'm calling this game Chomp Attack. It's a food eating game. Let's go to the whiteboard to draw out the plan. Okay, so let's draw out the board. So we'll have a board here. Let's choose a color. Okay, we'll have a board, and on that board it will be like a grid of squares. And we will have a character that will be on that board. Let's say it's a bunny rabbit. Okay, so you'll have a bunny rabbit, and each time you press a keyboard key, an up, down, right, left arrow, the bunny will move up, left, right, down around the screen. Now, on the right side, we want to have the score. Okay, so the number of points. We'll also have maybe some instructions and any other important information here. Also, we will have some food, maybe some lettuce or some carrots that the bunny can pick up and eat. All right, so now that we have the plan, I'm going to show you the images that I have already made. Okay, so here is our bunny character. When the bunny goes over a square where the food is, we will display this image. And then if you press a key, maybe the letter E, the bunny will begin to eat the food, and then you'll put points to the board. Okay? Now to start coding, we're going to press the Windows key, we'll type Note, we'll press Enter, and then we're going to start filling in our HTML page. Okay, now that I've written out the basic HTML, it is still a text file. So we need to save it as an HTML file from Notepad in order to make it an actual app. So click File, Save As, and then select where you want to save it. And we're going to choose All Files. Then we're going to type in Chomp Attack, the name of our game, .html. We will then press Save. Now on the left, you'll see it appear. Now we're going to test it. Double click on that, and this is the alert I clicked. And that's all that we see. So let's now take a look, go back to the Notepad. And so let's maybe type the title here, Chomp Attack. Okay, I will save and I'll refresh the screen and see what appears. So we are successful. We are able to create our page. So now we're going to start writing in our styling and our code. So I see I made a little typo. Here we need to put the right angle bracket. Let's save that. And the first CSS that we're going to add is to the title. So we're going to put .h1 title. That will be the class name. And here we will set the margin to 0 pixels. We'll set the padding to 0 pixels, and we will also set the font weight. We'll make it very heavy. Font weight to 900. And after that, let's make it center. So text align. We'll make that center. And last, let's make this font size bigger than the rest of the text. Font size bigger than the rest of the page, 70 pixels. Now let's save that and see what we see. Okay, there was no result because I need to add this class to the h1 element. So class equals h1 title. Let's save that and see what the result is. Okay, it's giving us a nice header. I'm going to mute or comment out this alert so that we can see the changes to the HTML much quicker. Now I want to add some styling to the entire page. Let's say, so if you use the star key, that will refer to everything on the page. And we're going to maybe set a font family. I prefer sans serif. I'm liking this font at the moment. And let's add a general font size of 20 pixels. So, okay, so let's refresh that. And now everything is looking great. So remember that on the left, we wanted to have the game board, and on the right, we wanted to have game information, game data. Okay, so inside of our code here, we're going to add some HTML underneath the title. Okay, and let's indent this a little bit. Okay, so we're going to make a game container. So we'll use a division. Okay, and so this will be class game container. Okay, and this will contain the entire game, left and right. Okay, then we'll have a div for the left. Okay, and this one will be the board container. We'll add a class and an ID because we'll need to access this later and populate it. We'll call this board container. And we'll make a class that is the same. Okay, so make sure to change that ID to class. Okay, that's on the left. And then on the right, so let's go next. On the right will be, okay, this is the right. This will be our game information. So we'll call this one, we just need a class. We don't need an ID for styling. So this is the, we'll call it the game data box. Game data box. Okay. And inside of it, we'll have some different elements. Now, let's go to our web page and refresh and see what we have. So right now, with the CSS cascading style sheets, it's not putting each element left and right. It's putting them both one on top of each other. So what we want to do is we want to add, we've created the classes. Now in CSS, we need to say what do these classes mean? What does that mean? So let's go ahead and make our class. So for the first one, it's the game container. We haven't made that yet. So game container, what will that be? Okay, the game container will have a display of flex. And I believe this may even just fix the problem. Okay, it does, but they're both right side by side. So, so what we might want for the both elements, we can add some other some styling to separate them. Okay, so on the left it's board container. So the board container class, we will give it a flex of 2. Maybe we want it to be bigger than the other one. And for, I'll just copy that. And so for this one is the game data box. Game data box. We'll give it a flex of 1 and see what happens. So now, perfect. We have on the left, that will be the board. On the right, we have the data or information. So let's continue. Now, what I like to do is for these containers, I like to add a color so that I can see what's happening. Right now, it's white. We can't tell what is happening. So let's add to the board container to margin 10 pixel. Oops. let's add a padding. This is for the board container. A padding of, actually we won't put any padding. We'll do a width of 50%. Let's spell that correctly. A height of 50%. And let's do a background color of yellow just for now. We'll fix it later. So let's see what that looks like. Right now it's going the length, the width, but there's no height at the moment. I guess if we add items, it will fill it in, but let's see. Okay, so we'll leave that for now. Okay, additionally, we want to add a display of flex to this board container, and underneath it, we will add a square class. Okay, and so this will be, we're going to just test and see if we can fill in the height with one square. So let's go to our game board here. It says left. We're going to replace this left with a div, which will be a square element. So we'll call this a div, and this is square 1. Okay. All right, and we'll add the class square. Okay, now the square, we're going to give it a height and a width, and okay, so height, let's say 100 pixels, width 100 pixels, and maybe background color blue. Okay, just to see. So if I refresh, now we can see that the height will be as big as high as the elements inside of it. Okay, great. For the game data box, we want to add also a display of flex. We will give it a flex direction of column. We'll also justify content center for now. I like center. And we will do align items center. This will put things in the middle, top and bottom, and left and right, so vertically and horizontally. And last, we'll make the font size a bit bigger to display information about the game. Okay, so if I save that right now, the only text we have is what it is, the right there. So now we want to fill that in with some of the information. So let's decide what to put in. I want to put in, actually let's go to the here. So we're going to remove right, and we'll replace that with the elements we want to add. So let's add a div, and this one will be the score box, right? We'll just add the class. Okay, score box. Okay, and inside of that, let's close the div. So inside of that, we'll have two divs. One will be the score title, the other one the score point. So class score title. Okay, this is title. It should just say score, right? Okay, and the other div will have the class score points, let's say. That sounds like it makes sense. Score points. And then, so that will be a number. Okay, and let's just save that and look. So we have the score on top of the points. Okay, and then underneath the score box, we'll have the instructions. Okay, so we can call that maybe the instruction box. So close the div. We'll add the class and we may need to add the IDs later. So, okay, call this the instruction box. Okay, and inside of the instruction box, we have a div, and this one will be, it'll be the title. Okay, let's get that angle bracket there. There we go. All right, and so that class will be instruction title. Okay, and then directly underneath that, we will have, let's just copy all of that. We will have the steps for our instructions. So this one will say instruction title. No, this will say instruction steps. And we can add all the steps after that. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So here we can tell people, tell the users, the players, what keys do you need to press in order to move the animal. Okay, let's save that. And so, perfect. We have our scoreboard. We want to make it look a little bit nicer, so we're going to modify those classes. So I want to pick and choose which elements I'm going to modify through CSS. So I am going to add some utility classes. So I'm going to name one utility class. We'll call it a data element. Sure, that sounds right. Data box. Okay, so for the data box, we're going to add some padding. So we'll give maybe 10 pixels of padding, and let's add a border, maybe a solid 2-pixel gray border. Okay, let's save that. Nothing changes because we need to apply it. So I want to add this maybe to inside of, maybe add it to not the score box, or maybe to the score box. Let's add it to the score box data box, and let's see what happens. So there we go. We added some spacing, and let's maybe add it to the instruction box called data box. And but it did not include the steps, which means this div is not containing the other div as I wanted. I believe I may have an extra div here. Okay, I'm going to delete it, and if everything breaks, I'll know what to undo, but let's see if that fixes it. Yes, perfect, they're contained. Now I want to make the text a bit bigger, so I'm going to add this utility class. We're going to call it medium text. Okay, medium, MD for medium, TXT, medium text size, and let's make that 30 pixels. So font size 30 pixels. Okay, and now we're going to add that to anything that has text. So this one here has text, so we'll add the medium text size. I will copy that so that I can reuse it. I don't have to type it again. For the points, yes, add it there, and also for the instructions, because we have text there, and as well as for the steps, pasted there. So let's refresh and see what it looks like. Great, it looks a lot bigger. Perfect. Now we're going to get some jQuery, and we're going to start working on filling the board and then developing what happens when you press a key. All right. Next, we need to get the jQuery CDN. So this way we don't need to download jQuery, but we can make use of it. It makes coding much simpler. jQuery CDN. Now we can go to the jQuery releases page, and so this, I'll get the most recent version and uncompressed, and I will copy this text here. So I will add that to our Chomp attack HTML file, and so it will go just above the script that's already there. Okay, and so let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, and we're going to confirm that it works by typing some jQuery. So we want to run some code after the document is loaded. So once the document is ready, we want to run some code. Sometimes code doesn't work because the document hasn't loaded yet. So this simplifies it. We're going to call the anonymous function, and inside of it, everything will run once the document is loaded. So once the document loads, please call this alert message. And let's use some capital letters there. Okay, great. Let's go back to our Chomp attack and see what happens. On load, it says hello world, and then you see the content. Perfect, beautiful. So now the next thing that we want to do is we want to build our board. So right now our board hasn't been built yet, but right now we have 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and inside of each row we have 4 columns. So we're going to, inside of jQuery, once the document has been loaded, we're going to write a double loop that will add divisions with a square class, and we'll add 4 rows with 4 columns in each row. So let's write the double loop inside here. So we know it works. I'm going to close that, and I'm going to write, let's determine how, let's determine the maximum amount of times you want to, or the maximum amount of rows and columns. So maybe max row equals 3. So remember, with computers, you don't start with 1, you start with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 is actually the 4th row. So max row 3, and let's do the same for columns. Max column, shorthand call, equals 3. Okay, and we're going to write our double loop. So 4, okay, this will be our loop. So if you don't know what a loop is a way to repeat code. You only have to type it one time, and you could say how many times you want to repeat it. So this is our counter, that I equals 0. Then while I is less than, I believe we start with rows, and then inside the rows you have the columns. Okay, while I is less than max row, I make increment I, add 1, increment it by 1. Okay, and then we'll attach. Now here's where we need an ID. So we want to attach to the container. So the game container, we don't want to attach that. We want to attach to the board container. Okay, so inside of the board container, we want to add, before we add the square, we want to add a row. So we're essentially going to have here a div that will be, the class will be row or something like that, and then inside of that we'll put the square. Okay, so that's the point. That's the goal. I'm going to delete that. I know that it works in general, but let's copy the ID. Okay, board container. Go back to our loop. So let's access that ID. So use a hashtag to access any element by their ID, and we're going to append. So it means attach something to that or put something inside of it. It's like creating a node. So we're going to append a row. So div ID. Okay, we'll figure out how we'll write this. Row, row dash, and then okay, we'll get to that. So let's just do okay. So row one. Okay, let's close it, and then let's make it add a square. Now, all of the IDs will have the same. All of the IDs right now will have the same ID, which is not good. So here we want to add in maybe the counter. We'll use the counter. So each time you go through the loop, the counter will become bigger. So now the that will increment. And let's see. Let's just play it and see what happens. Okay, so we ended up getting 3 square ones text. So okay, so now we need to maybe work on the CSS for the row, and then the CSS for the square. All right, I've decided it's time to refactor. So maybe let's make a row name here. Okay, so let row name equal to, let's say, row dash plus I. Perfect. So that will be exactly the same as this. So I can actually delete that, and I can now add this row name. Okay, and then I can put the same thing. Yeah, that's fine. That's the row name. Okay, now we don't need that, but let's put the row name there just to test our point, make sure it's working. So, and put the row name there. So let's save and see what happens. Okay, we have row 0, row 1, row 2. So it's only putting out 3 rows. So I wanted it to put out 4. So maybe it's going from 0, 1, and 2. And 2 is less than 3, so it quits. So maybe we need to say that it must be less than or equal to max row. So if we refresh it, now we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4 different rows there. But the rows are actually acting like columns. They are not like rows. So I think I know what's going wrong. So if we look here in, if we inspect HTML, it is outputting the IDs, but we need to maybe establish what the flex direction will be. So let's say the flex direction will be row. And let's see if that makes any improvement. Okay, so all right, I saw no change. Maybe set flex direction to column, and let's see what happens there. Okay, all right, good. So now it's going vertically as I wanted. And now for each of these rows, we want to append a column, or in fact, several columns, several squares. So inside of the first loop, let's write a second loop. Okay, so this loop will use a different counter, and that counter will be j. So let j equal 0, while j is less than or equal to max column. Then increment j by 1. Okay, so now we want to append to the row ID. So we'll use the hashtag to access the ID, and then we'll just put in the row name. So as soon as the row is put in, let's say row 0, I can access that. And we're going to add a div with the class square. So let's see how that works. Okay, we'll call this will be the class square. And let's just close that. We'll just say square let's save it and see what happens. So if I refresh, we now have the row. Inside of the row we have the squares, but they're all vertical. I want them to be horizontal. So maybe for the square I should establish the flex direction. So let's go back and go find the square um, class, and we're going to say we need to, or inside of the row, we need to add a row class. And inside the row, we need to add the flex direction. So let's add a row class. Square is fine. We'll say, okay, just the row class will be called row, and it will have a display of flex, display flex, and the flex direction will be, let's go with column, let's go with row. Let's see what happens. We'll just put it in, and we'll make our decisions after we see the result. So this, so the row ID is row name, and we also want it to have the class row. So each one will get the same class. Okay, let's refresh and see what happens. Perfect. We have all of our squares, and they're all lining up. Let's make it more obvious. Let's change the color maybe. So for our squares, we will maybe we'll also use the color yellow. Maybe use, but we'll add a border of maybe a different color, solid 2-pixel red, and let's see what that looks like. So now if I refresh it, this is what we have. We no longer need to write the text row, so we're going to remove that. Okay, so let's go down to our double loop, and right where it says the row name, inside of the div, I'm going to erase that because that's no longer useful or necessary. Okay, if I refresh, there we go. We have our our squares, but I want them to have an ID. So let's write the ID. So for each, so inside of the second loop, let's write, okay, let square ID equal, so maybe SQ underscore, and we want to add both the row and the column inside of that so that we can access it when we click on the element. So plus J plus a dash and plus I. So let's see what that looks like. Actually, we need to add that. So that will be row name append div, and also give it an ID, and the ID will be square ID. And inside of the web page, we can inspect to see if the ID was correctly formed. Let's refresh it. Okay, we don't see anything, but let's right click on one of the squares and let's look. So great. So each of these, this is square ID, square underscore 01 underscore 11 21 31. Okay, and if you go down to the second row, it follows the same format. It seems to be working just fine. Okay, now comes the fun part where we will add images and that type of stuff to the game board. Okay, so heading back into our code. Once the board has been written, we want to now, add, okay, let's add a comment to say what we want to do. We want to, add location of bunny and food to the board. Then second, we want to add image where the location of bunny is. Okay, so to do this first, so we know that on our board, we know that the square IDs are SQ underscore and then a number for the column and then a number for the row. So that means we can decide where we want to put something if we understand that. So let's say, okay, let's say I want to add the class bunny location. Bunny location. I want to add it to the cell with this ID of SQ underscore 0-0. Now, let's see what happens if I refresh the page. Nothing happens because I have not made a bunny location class yet. So let's make that. So I want to have, I'm going to add a color so that I can track where the bunny location is. Each time you press an arrow key, it's going to change that bunny location. Okay, and we'll add a background color of gold. Okay, let's see what happens. I refresh and perfect. We have, that's where the bunny will be. Now let's also add a class for food, any food item that the bunny will try to find and eat. So we'll call this one food location, and we'll keep the same color, or we could add another one. Let's add lime. Is that a color? Let's refresh. No, it's not. Or maybe it is. Let's we need to first add it. So let's say maybe let's choose another location, not the same one. So let's add food location to, let's say, 2-2. Let's see what happens. Yes, lime is a color. Okay, and let's add one more. What is this location? Inspect. That one is square 1, 3. Okay, so to square 1, 3, we're going to add another one. So let's copy that. Okay, and add the same class. Okay, so because we can have multiple food items on the board. So now we have one location where the bunny is and two where the food is. Now just to test, let's add an image to those locations, to those IDs. Okay, so what you can do is you can access all elements with the same class, and then you can add an image to those elements. So let's access by class. So to do that, you use a period to access by class. I want to access all bunny locations, and we're going to add class. This one will be for the image, and let's call it bunny1. Okay, so right now this should do nothing because we haven't defined bunny1. So now let's go up and define bunny1. So underneath these location classes, these will be our image classes. So bunny1 will be like so. For bunny1, we're going to add a background image, and we're going to find where is that on my computer. It's a JPEG file that will have to be at the end. So you can put the exact location, but I put the ... here to say you don't need to put the full string. So ... and then the folder, I forget the folder name. It might be 70-chomp attack. It might be, might not be. And then the image will be is bunny1. Okay, let's go to the folder and verify. So it is actually, it is called eat game, 70-eat game. And then we have these file names. So 70-eat game. Let's go back and let's change that to 70-eat game with capital letters for both eat, for the E and the G of eat game. Okay, and we're going to refresh the page to see if it works. Nothing happened. And why is that? So here it says in the console that it failed to load the resource. Maybe to improper naming, but the ID does have the class square and bunny luck and bunny1. So maybe we need to make sure that we've named it correctly. So let's take a look. Okay, I've located the problem. The file is called bunny-1-down, but I referred to it as bunny1. You know what? I'm just going to change that to bunny1, and that should be okay. I don't think I'll have any problems. Okay, let's go back to here. Let's save everything, and let's reload the page and see what happens. Okay, great. Now there was a change, but I think I only see a part of the bunny. So we need to change the size of this. So, okay, let's go to background size and let's make it 100 pixels because the square is 100 pixels by 100 pixels. Okay, it's great, but it's repeating. You see the ears here and there. I don't want that. So I need to add some more CSS. Let's do background repeat. No, thank you. No repeat. Okay, let's save that and see what happens. Great, it's not repeating, but maybe I want it to be in the center. Let's see if that's even something we can add. You know what? It's fine. Let's leave it as is. Good. Now we want to do the exact same thing, but for food. Okay, so just copy and paste, and we're going to call this food1, and here put that as food1 as well. Let's save and see what happens. Nothing happens. So maybe we hadn't added the code yet. No, we hadn't. So now we're going to add the code that will add to all elements that have food location class a food1 class. Okay, so let's do that. Let's copy this code, and here find all elements with food location class and add the food1 class. Okay, excellent. Everything is looking great. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do is we want to enter some code that will take the event of a key press, like the arrow keys, up, down, left, right, and move the bunny around the screen. So that's what we'll work on next.